YouTube friends. So, I had a little YouTube video idea. Here we are. Hi, welcome to my TED Talk. I wanted to try 25 new things or new experiences. It doesn't necessarily have to be at first. It's just like 25 goals that I want to try while being 25. So, I have lots of them, and some of them are a lot more personal that I don't feel like sharing in the World Wide Web. So I'm not gonna actually tell you all of my 25 things for 25, but I will share some of them and I'll tell you when it's part of that so you'll know. One of them is the one that I'll be sharing in this video. I want to finish a book every single month of 2025. I am off to a good start. I talked about kind of the process that I've gone through with this goal and like why I'm laying it out the way I'm laying it out in my last video, so if you haven't watched that, go watch that. But currently February, just finished my second book, so we're right on track. Let me tell you where we're at. So January, I finished this baby. I started this book, I want to say it was 2021, if not 2020. It was definitely pandemic-y. Guess I hit a wall with realizing that my reactivity was making my emotional life not fun at all, especially while dealing with an abusive relationship that brought out the worst in me. So I bought this book as a 20 or 21-year-old and I read it on and off literally until now. Granted, because I had a lot of other self-help books and like some of them I finished throughout that time, some of them not. I do a lot of tandem reading. Also talked about this in the last video, but back in like 2012, 2013, I was an avid reader and I like absorbed that shit. I was good at it. But that died along with my mental health in the years right after that. So ever since I got to college, really, I wanted to pick reading up as a hobby. Pick up the hobby of reading back up. That's a better way of saying that. However, when you're in school, you kind of need to read for school and not for pleasure. Didn't really have time to read for pleasure other than doing what I'm telling you of like the tandem reading thing. So I never got to really devour books as well as I used to. Thought the pandemic would be a good time to start doing that, so I bought a crap ton of books during that period of time, forgetting that I was still in school, just online, so didn't actually get to finish and devour books the way I wanted to. So this book was a part of that period where I started books, and it was kind of like a crisis book every time, where anytime I was in some emotional wreckage, mainly because of the relationship I was in, I needed advice on how to deal with reactions and emotions and on how to handle being abused. So it like subconsciously kind of became a book I didn't really want to be reading. Like I had a negative connotation with it. All that to say, I am so happy to have finished this book. It is a great book. You know, my negative experience in life separate from the correlation it had to this book. It's a wonderful book. I really love the examples it gives. It talks a lot about the studies done with like focus groups and how differently they react when given different tools to react to those situations. Not gonna get too into it, but you know, it's your run-of-the-mill self-help emotional regulation book. Emotional regulation is not a skill I was taught growing up because my parents had their thing going on. Point is, I didn't get to learn that growing up, and it definitely affected how I grew up. As I mentioned, mental illness present in the teens did its work on me, took a toll. So I think self-parenting and then healing all of that once I got to college was definitely something I was adamant about doing, and therefore why I love self-help books so much, which you'll be able to tell by this little series. But it also like had a few hiccups because of the relationship I was in at the time. It was tough, but it taught me so much, and it out of kind of desperation, led me to find more of these books and teach myself more things and self-parent better, and it can only go up from there, and it only has. So I'm very happy with that progress, with what these books teach me, with the resource of having these books, and it's just beautiful to see how implementing them has helped me throughout life. Big help for sure. But I finally finished it in January, and granted, like, as soon as I left that relationship, flew past the last few chapters once I actually felt safe in my real life enough to pick up a book and actually dig into one. So now we're reading, baby. Hell yeah. That was January. Finished that book then. Still in February, but just finished this one. If you follow me on any socials, you'll see that this book has been with me, glued to my side the entire month. And I started it in January, to be fair. Where to start with The Power of Now? I heard about the book when I was around, like, I want to say 15, 16 from a YouTuber on here when YouTube was in its heyday. She was very, like, bohemian spiritual, which I was very into at the time, especially throughout my depression. It helped me cope a lot to, like, lean more into spirituality, and I was just in my hippie year, like, hardcore hippie those years. So I've been dying to read this book since then. Thought about buying it. I keep hitting the box and that's gonna be really annoying for sound. I'm sorry. Thought about buying it online because I lived in Bolivia at the time. Getting books in English, not easy here. I wanted to read it in English. It was not possible at the time unless it was digital, but I didn't want a digital copy because this felt like something that I needed to have tangible in my hands. And you know, I don't think I failed myself with that logic. I think, yeah, facts. But little did I know, my aunt has had this book in her cupboard, piling in dust for years. It was there all along. But hey, books find you when you need them, right? Because here we are, 10 years later. I saw it, I found it, all while in a healing journey, a meditative space, a sabbatical time for me. So it was just divine timing. So found it, read it. Beautiful. I think the only thing I don't like about it as much is that it's very repetitive, but intentionally, strategically, like, it's meant to hammer down on some of its points. While it brings you into consciousness, into being, the words will resonate more and take on a different meaning the more you understand it. So that's why it's repetitive, I get it, but it did make it kind of hard to take in bigger chunks. Like, I really had to slow down with this book, which is kind of the point. You really need to sit with it in the present moment, absorb every word very well. It was challenging in that sense, as someone who gets very easily distracted and who is just now picking back up the habit of properly reading. So that was good. That was a good challenge. Truly one of the most, like, rings true spirituality staples. That's also kind of a theme of, like, a lot of the books that I want to be reading. Staples, like, just classics. Because there's so many books that throughout my period of not reading that I was like, why haven't I read that yet? We're gonna get through the books that I've been wanting to read for a decade or two. We're gonna do it. January, February. I'm still doing the tandem reading thing because, especially with this habit of, like, oversaturation, you have content all over you all the time. I can't just have one book, especially if I want to be reading, honestly, because then I feel like commitment issues to the book. I'm trapped in this one world and there's just so much more out there. So, like, I feel like if I only commit to one book, then I rely more on screens to, like, distract my brain with other things or just have more variety. So in order to not do that, I need to be reading other books to just take a break, switch to a different genre or just a different tone. So for this month, I've also kind of started Atlas of the Heart. It's way over there on my desk. Don't feel like getting it, but I showed it on my last video. Go watch the last video. But my plan is very flexible with this for March to be this bad boy. This I have read, I think twice actually, but thinking back on how much it changed my life and like thematically what was going on, and like it introduced me to the concept of alchemy, which if you know me, it just rings so true to how life is supposed to go for human beings, and like tapping into all the energies around us and our emotions and how we're all one, the oneness of it all. This introduced me to that, and it just like felt like clearing veils. It was clarity. So if I felt that way when I was a teen, that I'm sure only absorbed a certain percentage of this, I know it'll hit harder now. I just like rereading good books after a while to see how you have grown as a person or how you've changed as a person and how that makes you interpret the book differently. I think it's always a fascinating experience because it's almost like a brand new book. Gonna reread it. I'm very excited about it. Love the book. This one, I wish I could have read in Spanish, but I read it in English, and now that I've read it in English, I don't feel like I can read it in Spanish. March. I'll keep you posted on how that keeps going. We'll see. And so on and so forth, but so far we're on track with that. So, one of the 25 things I want to do while I'm 25. We're getting there.